Howdy. My name is Chuck Lobb. Sherry said I have 3 minutes and to be funny. I know what it feels like to be a comedian in front of a tough crowd now. I met George in the spring of 1984, and I was in my second year of law school and was clerking for Ron Murray. I was introduced around the crew at Robert Shields and Associates, and like most people, I immediately became very fond of George. His infectious smile and laugh attracted me to him like everyone in this room. After I graduated from law school and passed the bar in 1985, it was George that gave me my nickname, Rookie. And over the years, we played softball together, we partied together, and we traveled together. George was bigger than life and did everything over the top. I remember George inviting me down to the island to go to Dickens on the Strand with him and Sherry and others. I didn't know exactly what that was all about, and I just dressed in normal clothes. When I walked into George and Sherry's house, George said, "We can't have that." And he proceeded to take me into his room to dress me appropriately. And dress me he did. When we left for the Strand, I looked like the Artful Dodger from the movie Oliver, knickers and all. George even found some charcoal to rub on my face. At our annual Christmas parties, it was George who started singing the Christmas carols and got me to sing along even though I can't hold a note. Arms around each other, we would sing to our heart's content. And now that I think about it, I figured out why everyone else drank, so they wouldn't care if we were out of tune. We also traveled to various locations throughout Mexico, Costa Rica. George was big and loud, and he snored big and loud. I now know why I, being the newcomer, ended up always rooming with him. Now, he also had sleep apnea. Now, when I say big and loud, I mean not only was the snoring loud, but I mean big. Coupled with his apnea, there would be silence, and I figured finally I get some sleep. And then there's that deep, throaty, snotty, hard snort of a snore, and I'm up again, and he's sleeping all right through it. George was caring about people. And I remember one trip down south, I said to him, "George, you're going to have to do something about that snoring, or I'm going to have to find a new roommate." That following year, George checked a large package at the airport. When we were unpacking in the room, he showed me his new CPAP machine. And this is one of the first ones that ever come out. It was big, it sat on the floor, it gurgled, and it plugged into the wall. And he didn't snore with that, but I couldn't sleep because of the machine. After a few years of this, I told George about the racket his machine was making. That next year's trip, George told me he had a surprise for me. When we were unpacking in the room, he showed me the small, new, state-of-the-art CPAP machine that was practically silent and battery-powered. Now, so Sherry, I'm going to take some credit for George getting that CPAP machine. I know you appreciate that. The guys in our travel group have a pact, a tradition to celebrate the life of one of us who has passed on in one of the places that we've traveled. We have twice done this. We first for Bob Shields, and next for Steve Hadlock. We carry a blown-up image of our fallen friend and take him everywhere with us. By the end of the trip, everyone in the resort knows who that person is. In elevators, perfect strangers would say hi to Bob, to Steve, and we'll be saying the same, "Hi, George." People would buy them drinks, which I always liked. On the last day at sundown, we burn the picture and remember the great times that we had traveling. George will also be with us this year in Mexico. We will remember all the great times we had together and then burn his picture on the beach, but we won't be sad because, like most of you, right now, think about George, and you're like me, you just get a big old smile on your face. And it was that smile that I will always remember. I just hope I'll be able to sleep at night.
Good morning, everyone. Social media has become such a huge part of our life, and I have to say there were thousands upon thousands of posts about George Black, so we wanted to share some with you. Betty Vogler, for all of us that had the privilege of knowing this fine gentleman, we are all better for it. Galveston lost a friend, but heaven has gained a true champion. Johnny Smecca. George Black was one of my first mentors when I came home from college. I can honestly say he made me want to be a public servant just being around him. Diane Pena, so hard to take in. Cousin George was larger than life and seemed so invincible. He could never do anything halfway. If he was in it, he was leading it. His passing will leave a huge hole in our church and community. A life well lived, so many touched by George's work and commitment to making things better. Karen Stallman, this might bring a little chuckle. George told me he believed when we die, we literally have a come to Jesus meeting. I think George's meeting was very interesting and colorful. In heaven, he is probably organizing Oktoberfest, Mardi Gras, Boy Scouts, Kiwanis, and whatever else needs to be brought up to speed to bring heaven to Georgia's standards. Mary Ann Saul Chambers, and I have to say this one helped me in understanding this whole thing that happened so fast. George was very much like my dad. He made up his mind about how something should be, and he made it happen. We have all been in shock today that George went so fast. He went on his terms, he found out the facts, and proceeded to take action. He didn't want to hang around and make Sherry suffer. Like you, I'm going to miss him terribly. Our reunions will never be the same, and I imagine he has already organized the crew of angels and planning Oktoberfest. We love you, George, and we know you're looking down on us, and we will be waiting for you to greet us with your eyes twinkling and your smile as big as ever. And one last one from Kathleen Sunikin, and I may be messing up that name. His big smile will always shine over the island of Galveston like a bright, warm sun. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joe Tambrella, and I'm a part of the crew of Gambrinas. Y'all might have noticed some of the guys have these jackets on that says KG, crew of Gambrinas. Well, George told me it stands for King George. In 1998, George became our king. He was also the captain of our crew. And our theme for the parade that year was Viva Las Vegas. And he made a comment to one of the girls that, boy, I'd sure like to have some showgirls march with me into the Coronation Ball. Well, one of the gals took that to light, had 6 of them make costumes, and George didn't know this was going to happen, but they came in before George doing a little dance routine for George. That was the beginning of our crew wearing costumes in the parade. It was just one of the things George did to always upgrade the parade and the ball. After that, Trent Morgan decided to retire from being parade marshal, and George offered me the job. I think he was kind of intimidated with me because of my size and being Italian. We had a lot of good times together. We spent a lot of time in New Orleans. Thanks to our friend Dan Kelly and his family, we got to go to New Orleans, and Dan asked us to ride in Demon's parade, which is huge. I mean, it's a big parade. Like I said, George is always looking for some way to improve our parade. So that night, when the parade started, they had these searchlights, and George's wheels start turning. He said, what do you think if we get searchlights in our parade and eliminate the fireworks? I said, sounds good to me. So he says, I'm going to get some searchlights. He calls Ken Gordon. Ken, get me 2 searchlights. We took a lot of trips together, and we had a lot of fun together. Y'all might have noticed this picture of George swimming with the dolphins. That was the last trip George took. When we went on a cruise, my youngest son's been on several, and he asked me to go, and I said, yeah. So I called George, he wanted to go, so we did. Our friend John Willis had won a gift card for Carnival Cruise Line, so we bought the the drink package. You ever try to drink 15 drinks in a day? We tried. The worst part is the days when you had an excursion, you're gone for about 8 hours off the ship, and you come back and you got about 8 hours to drink 15 drinks. But we tried. When you all leave today, if anybody's going over the causeway, look and see if you can see a pelican. If you do, wave to it and say, hi, George. Sherry, thank you for taking care of my friend.